The rain fell heavily. The soldiers, the holy knights of the kingdom, stood unmoving beneath it. Among them was a frail-looking man, his body pierced straight through. A holy knight addressed him, calling him a vampire. He mocked him, asking if it had been fun hiding like a rat for the past 6 months. He accused him of killing countless people during that time and spat insults, calling him a filthy beast who dared to make a mockery of the holy knights. "I'll admit," the knight sneered, "that was a pretty decent stunt." The vampire only coughed up blood. The holy knight continued, "But this is where your part in the play ends. God will no longer tolerate your existence. You should be honored. Your death will grant me the title of Vampire Slayer." With that, he pulled his sword out of the man's body and threw him to the ground. He declared that for the sin of deceiving the church and refusing the judgment of the holy knights, the vampire's wretched, fallen form was proof enough of his guilt. Then he mocked him again, confessing the truth. He had not caught him earlier on purpose. He had joined the pursuit late and allowed the vampire to run wild all this time. It had been ages since a vampire last appeared, and he wanted to drag it out so his achievement would truly shine, a daily warning to non-believers. The vampire had known all along, and when his anger finally erupted, it was fierce. He rushed toward the holy knight. The vampire understood this world well. Only the strong survive. No matter what one desires, everything is decided by the power of the strong. So he ran, but it wasn't enough. He was slain by the holy knight. As his life faded, the vampire thought that if he were given just one more chance, he would never live the same way again. He would no longer hide like a rat. He woke up. He woke up gasping for breath, unable to believe what was happening to him. His neck had been severed, his arms and legs torn apart, yet they were all intact now. He had definitely died. Was it a dream? No. This was the tent he had lived in before the holy knights began hunting him. The date was 6 months earlier, just before the subjugation started closing in on him. He couldn't believe it. He had returned to the past. He clenched his fist. If he had truly been given another chance, then this place, the remote forest near Broadwind Village where humans rarely traded, was familiar territory. He had lived here, hiding from human eyes because he was weak. He held his breath. Pathetic. That was the word he used for himself. A pathetic vampire, barely scraping by day after day. His name was Eugene. Originally, he hadn't craved human blood. But long ago, he had given in to his instincts just once. That single mistake changed everything. The very next day, mercenaries flooded the area. 5 days later, holy knights were scouring every village. Whether it took a month or a year, they always took their time, and they always found him. Out of fear, he survived on nothing but animal blood in these woods for 12 long years. He didn't know how he had returned to the past, but only one thing mattered now. He had been given this chance. And he couldn't make the same mistakes again. Running and hiding only led to death. Holding his breath and erasing his presence still ended the same way. If that was the case, then there was only one answer. He had to become so strong that even if they found him, they wouldn't be able to kill him. The vampire's way. He looked toward the swamp before him. His survival strategy had to change, and he was ready to change with it. To be a vampire. He knew that vampires could absorb power through bloodsucking. The stronger the owner of the blood, the greater the power gained. That was why he had come here, to the swamp where the Lord of the Forest resided. A massive, crocodile-like monster lurked there. It lunged at him. He had to defeat it to absorb its blood. With his frail body, dodging was the best he could manage. But if he could inflict even a small wound, he could drink its blood, or so he believed. Until now, his method of survival had been to erase his presence completely. But now that he knew that path only led to failure, there was no room for hesitation. With a loud yell, he leapt at the beast, gripping his rugged sword. He was desperate for power. He clashed with the monster, but his sword shattered. The beast's tail smashed into him, sending him flying. His body screamed in pain. Had he underestimated the strength behind the rumors? The beast was a rumor. Unlike monsters that dwell in the demonic realm, rumors roam the natural world. Even in places devoid of mana, some rumors possess magic stones, treasures more valuable than jewels. To a rumor, the magic stone is its core. If he could find it, he might still turn this around. But the gap in power was obvious. A rumor that ruled the forest could snap his neck before he even landed a scratch. The rumor bit down on Eugene and dragged him beneath the swamp. He was half-eaten. In that battered state, Eugene wondered, since he had been given a second chance, would it be so strange to receive a third? He almost let go. But no. He didn't think that highly of himself. and that was exactly why he had always crawled through life. Now he held his breath and struggled to survive. This time he chose to fight. With his bare teeth he bit into the inside of the beast. He wanted to live. He would fight. He would win. Again and again he bit into the monster from within. His body began to change as he absorbed the blood of the rumor. There was no future after defeat. So he clawed deeper into the rumor's body, searching for the mana stone. Survival meant standing atop the blood of others. He shattered the mana stone and absorbed its power. With his bare hands he tore the beast apart. He had longed for this war. He had chosen the path of battle. And with that he was reborn, once more, into a new man. He vowed that with this new life he would seize blood and victory alike. Eugene looked calm now, carefully analyzing the situation. He had only intended to drink the blood of a creature on the level of a lord of the forest, but to think he would absorb its mana stone as well. The magic power contained within the roamer's mana stone far exceeded his expectations. Its color was different from what he had heard of, and its size was enormous. The ability he gained from the mana stone allowed him to armor his skin with black scales. With this, he might be able to block sunlight enough to move around during the day, he thought. He had first learned about the Lord of the Forest when he was once captured by mercenaries. Back then, the wetlands were not very large, so no one knew of the Lord of the Forest's existence. But as the rainy seasons and floods expanded its territory, the beast eventually revealed itself by attacking the mercenaries. In the chaos, Eugene had managed to drink a mouthful of the injured lord's blood. Thanks to that, he was able to take down several mercenaries and escape. It was then that he realized its potency, and understood that he would one day need to drain its blood completely. Now he had accumulated some power, but it was still far from enough to face a holy knight. Young Direct. He needed to avoid unwinnable battles until he was absolutely certain he could win. Eugene remembered Holy Knight Young Direct well, convinced that man could find him wherever he was, if he truly set his mind to it. He seemed to possess an exceptional ability to track monsters or undead. So instead of continuing to live in hiding, Eugene had to build enough power to face the holy knights when they eventually came for him. He looked up at the moon. With sunrise approaching, it was too early to fully test the mana stone's power. He decided to head back before dawn. But just as he was about to leave, a faint laugh echoed through the air. A voice spoke. The false master who usurped my territory and turned my beautiful lake into a wetland is finally dead. To think you would give that false master such a miserable end? I express my gratitude. The voice continued, cold and threatening. However, you must pay the price for fearlessly trespassing here and staining this land with blood. This place belongs to me, the guardian of the lake, Miriam. As she spoke, the forest seemed to tremble. The forest shall rage. The earth shall hate you. You shall be cursed, your body torn to shreds. She assumed he could not see her. Sensing the presence of a spirit was a feat only a select few could accomplish. There was no way a bald vampire like him could hear a single word she was saying, at least that was what she believed. But Eugene turned his gaze directly toward her. What are you? He asked calmly. She froze. She hadn't expected him to see her. Eugene repeated himself, his sharp eyes fixed on her. What are you? The water spirit immediately changed her tone, from arrogant to oddly submissive. Can you actually see this humble one, kin of the Nightland? She asked. Yes, Eugene replied. She hesitated. Then, did you happen to hear what I said earlier too? If you mean the part about me being a bald vampire, Eugene said calmly, yes. She froze for a moment, then quickly bowed her head. My apologies. I am the water spirit Miriam. She straightened up and continued, I was the original master of this place. But that crocodile bastard stole my territory 15 years ago, and I was forced into servitude. Well, maybe not a slave. More like a strategic partner. Prey wouldn't come if the water was dirty, so he recognized this water site as my territory. She waved her hand dismissively. Anyway, thanks to you, sir, that crocodile bastard is dead. This land will finally be purified again. Then she tilted her head, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. I definitely saw a bald old man getting eaten by that crocodile. But just when I thought you were dead, boom. An explosion, and suddenly a handsome man appears. Was that some kind of disguise to take down the crocodile? You're so meticulous. She was clearly buttering him up. Eugene, however, wasn't paying much attention. His gaze had shifted to the golden tattoos on his body. One of them was fading, slowly disappearing. He didn't know why. The fairy noticed his distraction. Oh, I should be polite. Those tattoos are pretty cool. What do they mean? I don't know, Eugene replied. They've been there since the beginning. He remembered that he had been a vampire for as long as he could remember, born this way. Even in his earliest memories, all 10 tattoos had already been etched into his body. For some reason he couldn't recall anything from his distant past. So he had focused solely on surviving, never questioning who he truly was, or whether the tattoos were some kind of imprint or spell. Did one of them unlock because of what happened today? I'm leaving, Eugene said at last. Guard the forest well. Miriam blinked in surprise. You're just leaving? I haven't had anyone to talk to in ages. As time passed, fewer and fewer beings could see spirits. She was bored to death. Wouldn't it be nice to have a conversation partner? She asked eagerly. Eugene paused. Do you intend to turn the wetlands back into a lake? She sighed. That would take a very long time to purify. Besides, wouldn't it be better to at least offer some clean water to handsome men with such pale complexions? She puffed out her chest proudly. I am a water fairy after all. My water tastes divine. Drink it and your complexion will improve instantly. She then spat out a stream of clear water from her mouth and held it out to him. Go on. Drink this. Get lost, Eugene said flatly, recoiling. That's disgusting. I can purify it, she protested. I can make clean water anywhere instantly. She suddenly clung to him. If I use my hands instead of spitting it out, I can do it much faster. I don't need it, Eugene said. She ignored him and tightened her grip. Then I'll just stay with you. And just like that, the water spirit Miriam became Eugene's new partner. A few days later, in the nearby village of Broadwind, the chief and the villagers were gathered together when someone suddenly shouted that the red-eyed monster had appeared. The chief and the others hurried outside and found several animal carcasses laid out neatly. It was the result of a hunt. They examined a boar in particular. The amount of meat was far more than usual. This is too much, someone muttered. Can we even take all of this? A boy looked up at the chief and asked, What do you think the red-eyed monster is thinking? He usually only throws us a little game once every full moon. It's not even time for him to come yet. To them, he was a sinner who lived at the foot of the mountain, far from the village, known only as the red-eyed monster. Yet for over 10 years he had lived nearby without ever harming anyone. Instead, once every full moon he would visit late at night and leave behind hunted game. Who could ever understand what went on inside a sinner's mind? Just as they were thinking this, a calm voice called out from a distance. May I step into the village for a moment? They all hesitated. This was the first time in 10 years they had seen him appear openly. Eugene, meanwhile, recalled how frightened everyone had been when he first appeared a decade ago. But since he offered hunted beasts as though paying a tax, the villagers eventually stopped paying him much attention. And so, this strange relationship continued for over 10 years. The chief finally stepped forward and welcomed him. It's been a while, he said cautiously. Do you have something to say? Eugene moved slightly closer and spoke. I have lived far from the village all this time because I contracted a disease. After a long period of seclusion, I have finally recovered. I came today to share this good news. He paused before continuing. Over the years, I've received much help from this village. I wish to return the favor. If anything ever happens, if you ever need me, please call for me at any time. As he spoke, Eugene removed his hood. The mask hiding his face fell away. The villagers gasped. Standing before them was a handsome young man. None of them had imagined that the red-eyed monster looked like this. Was this really the sinner who lived in the forest? Was he a half-elf? A noble? No one knew. He had always worn a mask. The chief stared, stunned. Was he always this good-looking? Beside Eugene, the water spirit pouted. Why are you giving away all the game we worked so hard to catch? She complained. What are you thinking? Eugene didn't respond, merely gazing calmly toward the forest as he listened. Miriam continued, Aren't vampires supposed to be about blood, slaughter, and death? In human society, Eugene replied quietly, making acquaintances matters. Showing goodwill matters too. But if you're not going to eat them, the water spirit argued, why mingle with humans at all? You said we're leaving in a few days. If we won't need this place anymore, then none of this matters. Eugene pulled his mask back on. I used to think things were unrelated too, he said. But I learned that isn't always the case. I can't just stand by and watch what's about to happen. He continued calmly, Soon mercenaries will storm this place. Everyone in this village will die. Miriam froze. They're coming to kidnap a boy from Broadwind, Eugene said. They plan to take him to Lord Titaquin's castle. To erase witnesses, they'll slaughter the entire village. If this happens, the future will spiral until even the holy knights intervene. The water spirit stared at him in shock. If that's true, how do you know all this? All the villagers will die, she asked quietly. I've been with you for days, yet I still can't read you. What are you really thinking? You'll find out soon enough, Eugene replied. Just watch. Then he added, before that, shouldn't I earn a little trust? So they know I'm harmless. What does trust have to do with mercenaries? Miriam asked. Eugene suddenly stopped walking and looked ahead. There they were. Mercenaries approached along the road. They spotted Eugene immediately. Who's that guy? One sneered. What's with that hairstyle? They assumed he was from the village. That was a problem. They had planned to sneak in unnoticed. He's got a pretty face, another muttered. Not much armor. And he's alone. It'll be trouble if he screams, said the mercenary pretending to be their leader. Make sure he doesn't. A subordinate lunged forward, swinging a double axe. Before the blade could reach him, Eugene calmly reached out and tore the man's head clean off with his bare hand. The remaining mercenaries froze in horror. Eugene turned slightly and said to Miriam, think carefully. Building trust matters. Otherwise, I'll look suspicious. His eyes darkened. Because I'm going to kill every last one of them. His hand transformed into a black, beast-like shape as he stepped forward, his expression terrifying. He was ready to slaughter them all. Screams echoed through the forest. He's not human, he's a vampire, one of the mercenaries shouted in terror. Another barked back, trying to steady himself. That's even better. Don't be afraid. If we capture him alive and hand him over to the church, we'll get a massive bounty. He raised his sword, and his head went flying. Before the others could react, heads began to fall one after another. Greed drove them forward, each mercenary desperate to claim the vampire's head, but Eugene was far beyond their reach. He slaughtered them barehanded, claws tearing through flesh and bone. A bald mercenary wielding a mace charged straight at him. Eugene caught the weapon with his bare hand and crushed it effortlessly. It's getting dark, Eugene said calmly. And the night is my time. It's also the best time to hide blood. With that, he finished off every mercenary who had come. Later, villagers gathered at the scene, staring at the corpses scattered across the ground. What happened here? They whispered. The chief's gaze shifted to Eugene. Could this be the work of the red-eyed monster? He stepped forward and asked carefully, Sir, was this your doing? Eugene shook his head. No. I came across this while returning from hunting. I was checking my traps when I found these people already attacked on the road to Broadwind Village. He pointed toward several corpses nearby. The culprits were these creatures. Black wolves lay dead around them. There were many. I waited until they were distracted, feeding on the bodies. I managed to kill a few, but there were more originally. Some escaped, they might still be watching us. The chief frowned. Black wolves? They're notorious in this area. Others inspected the scene and nodded. There were clear claw marks on the corpses, and gouges on nearby trees. The bodies looked thoroughly mauled. It really was wolves. The chief bowed his head. I apologize for doubting you, sir. That's understandable, Eugene replied calmly. Then he added, what will you do with the bodies? I couldn't leave them behind, so I came to inform you. The chief sighed. We can't leave them for beasts. We'll bury them in the village. Behind Eugene, a voice muttered, one only he could hear. You really are full of lies whenever you open your mouth. Miriam clicked her tongue. Did you forget what you did before calling the chief? After you killed the mercenaries, wolves were drawn by the smell of blood and took care of the rest. You even carved tooth marks into the corpses yourself to disguise the traces. She snorted. Hiding it is one thing, but why do you care so much about your image? If you were leaving this place anyway, you wouldn't need to bother with any of this. Sure, they'd suspect you, but still. She paused. You definitely have something in mind. Eugene then handed something to the village chief. A letter, sealed with wax. I searched their belongings, thinking of returning anything useful, Eugene said. This appears to be a letter they were carrying. You may want to read it. The moment the chief saw the seal, his face stiffened. This is from Lord Twin. As he read, his expression turned pale. Is this true? He muttered, then raised his voice. Call Pellet. Is Pellet in the village right now? He is, someone replied, confused. Why? The chief swallowed hard. Pellet may be the illegitimate child of Lord Twin. These mercenaries were here to take him away. Gasps rippled through the villagers. That kid, a noble? Shock and disbelief spread through the crowd as the truth began to sink in. Eugene remembered what had happened when the mercenaries first appeared. Their leader had been visibly shaken, unable to believe what he was witnessing. Eugene was tearing through the mercenaries with his bare hands, slashing them down as if they were nothing. "Don't hesitate," the leader shouted to the others. "If we retreat, we're dead anyway. No matter what kind of monster he is, he still has only 2 arms and 2 legs." With that reckless order, the mercenaries surrounded Eugene and attacked him all at once. It wasn't enough. The leader thought he could take advantage of the chaos and stab Eugene from behind, but he was crushed by a single blow and sent flying through the air. Coughing up blood, he pleaded, "Stop. Were you waiting for us from the beginning?" Pain racked his body as he asked, "Why did you target us?" Eugene looked down at him coldly. "I'm curious. What business did you have with the village beyond this mountain path?" His gaze sharpened. "That village is mine." The mercenary hurriedly apologized. "We didn't know it was under a vampire's rule. We didn't come here to hunt vampires." He swallowed and continued, "An illegitimate child of the twin family, the ones who govern this territory, is hiding there. We were sent to capture that child." Eugene sneered. "You lie skillfully. What's your real objective?" "That excuse wouldn't justify mobilizing this many people. Were you planning to wipe out the village?" The leader hesitated. "No, not exactly. It's not completely wrong, but the truth is, we were hired by the head family of the twins. Our clients were the legitimate heirs, Lady Camera Twin and Sir Burton Twin." He lowered his head. "It's probably noble political infighting. Our job was only to kidnap the illegitimate child. The number of men was preparation in case things went wrong." Disgust churned in Eugene's chest. He remembered another man tied to this incident. Bertel Twin, the knight in charge of the vampire pursuit unit. The same knight who had tormented him alongside young Derict. Bertel likely hadn't directly ordered a massacre. That part had been born purely from the mercenaries' greed. But it was still the reason Eugene had eventually been discovered. An entire village disappearing had forced the holy knights to mobilize en masse. The leader continued desperately, "We just thought it was a chance to make a fortune. That's all. If we had known a vampire lived there, absolutely we would never have come." He bowed his head repeatedly, mumbling excuses. Eugene turned away. "I understand," he said flatly. "Be careful of wolves on your way back." The leader's eyes widened in disbelief. "Is he letting us go? Such mercy." Before he could finish the thought, Eugene casually picked up a stone and flicked it. The stone sliced through the man's neck in a single strike. His head fell. Above Eugene, Miriam laughed in delight. "They've all bled out anyway. You might as well kill them all." "Yes," Eugene replied calmly. "They already discovered that I'm a vampire. I can't let them live." He glanced toward the darkness of the forest. "Besides," he added, "the wolves nearby have smelled the blood. They're drooling already." Back in the present, the villagers turned to the chief in disbelief. "Is what you're saying true?" The chief nodded gravely. "Yes. The dead mercenaries were guards sent to bring Peled back to the castle." A murmur spread through the crowd. "Didn't Peled lose his mother last year?" someone said. "He's been living alone since then." "He came to our village about 8 years ago, didn't he?" another added. "Could it be?" The chief reread the letter carefully and said, "According to this, the mercenaries were supposed to escort Peled to the Lord's domain, but they were attacked by beasts along the way." A heavy silence fell. "Then what are we supposed to do now?" someone asked. Eugene stepped forward. "All we need to do is take Peled to the Lord's castle." The villagers turned to him in surprise. "The mercenaries couldn't handle the fierce beasts in this area," Eugene continued calmly. "But I've lived in this forest for a long time. I can escort him to the city while avoiding danger." The chief hesitated. "Are you certain? We can't possibly ask you to do something like that as well." Eugene smiled brightly. "It's fine. As a knight, I can't turn a blind eye." Miriam, draped lazily over his shoulder, muttered, "You're really shameless." But her amusement vanished a moment later. The villagers froze. "A knight?" they echoed. Miriam stared at Eugene in disbelief. "He can lie this shamelessly?" Eugene cleared his throat. "My apologies. My introduction was late." He straightened slightly. "My name is Jan Eugene of the Eugene family." For a moment no one spoke. Who would possibly believe that? Miriam screamed beside him.
The villagers were in utter shock. "The red-eyed monster is a noble?" someone blurted out. "Watch your mouth," another snapped. "That's rude. You should call him Sir Eugene." Even Miriam, hovering beside Eugene, couldn't hide her disbelief. Even if it's a lie, isn't that going too far? She whispered. Eugene merely smiled. You saw their reaction earlier, he murmured to her. These people have never seen a noble before. They're already in an uproar over the idea that a boy hiding in a mountain village is of noble blood. Even if I impersonate one, they don't have the means to tell the difference. The villagers, now visibly excited, gathered around him. Eugene answered calmly, due to various circumstances, I severed ties with others and chose to live in seclusion. The villagers nodded in admiration. The village chief spoke apologetically. Our village is poor. We cannot offer you a proper reward. That's fine, Eugene replied gently. If possible, I would simply like to rest here tonight and relieve my fatigue. That is the least we can do, the chief said warmly. The next morning Eugene stood by the window in the shade, studying his hand. Thin black scales spread across his skin, an ability he had obtained from the former master of the forest. The hardened scales dulled the sunlight somewhat. Thanks to this, the journey ahead would be far easier. Miriam floated beside him, frowning. You ignorant vampire, what were you thinking telling such a lie? You claim to be a knight, yet you can't even read. Eugene's expression didn't change. Perhaps I'll be exposed someday. It doesn't matter. I'll be gone by then. Miriam crossed her arms. Then tell me, what is your real goal? You lived quietly in the forest all this time. Why suddenly build relationships with villagers and accept their request? Before he could answer, a voice called from outside. Sir Eugene. We're ready. We can depart now. Eugene gestured toward the voice. See, he told Miriam. Overnight I gained status. Humans often believe authority more readily than they believe long explanations. I can tell 100 lies, but if I establish status first, those 100 lies become 10. He adjusted his mask. This village may accept a makeshift lie like this. Nobles won't. That's why from now on, I'll make the lie real. So far he had been building trust through good deeds. The village chief approached and handed him a letter. In case there is any misunderstanding, I've written a statement explaining everything, he said. Please take good care of Felix, our young master. Felix stepped forward and bowed politely. I look forward to your guidance, Sir Eugene. Eugene inclined his head. Jan Eugene. It's a pleasure to meet you. And with that, the two of them departed, beginning their journey toward the House of Twin. They arrived at a nearby settlement soon after. Eugene glanced ahead. Is that village called Brahms? Felix studied the wooden sign at the roadside. Judging by the letters, yes, that should be Brahms. Eugene paused. You can read? Felix nodded. My late mother taught me. She was of low status, so she never learned properly herself. She said the man she loved taught her. Miriam floated closer to Eugene, grinning. That's perfect. You can ask him to teach you how to read. Good idea. Eugene turned to Felix. Would you mind teaching me as well? Felix froze. You? But Sir Eugene, you're a knight. Don't tell me you can't read. Eugene's gaze softened, his expression tinged with sadness. A knight in name only. My family has already fallen, there's nothing to boast about. What kept me alive wasn't words, but a single sword. Felix's eyes widened. Then, could it be that your family is already? He stopped himself. Silence followed as they continued walking. Inside, Eugene was perfectly aware of what he was doing. Doubt first, then sympathy, then belief. Once trust was formed, it would become thick enough to conceal every lie. Miriam laughed quietly. Your acting is flawless. Though be careful, overusing lies can raise suspicion. She glanced at Felix. But judging by his expression, that won't be a problem. He already believes everything. Sure enough, Felix soon bowed his head. I apologize, Sir Eugene. I was doubting you. One moment you were called a monster, the next a noble. I let prejudice cloud my judgment. He clenched his fists. I'll trust what I see with my own eyes, not rumors. If you come from a martial family, it makes sense that reading was neglected. I'll teach you in my spare time so you won't be embarrassed in front of others. He was about to ask Eugene more, when an arrow flew straight toward his eyes. Clang. Eugene caught it midair. Felix stumbled back in shock. From the trees emerged several men, one holding a crossbow, another gripping a pickaxe. They laughed loudly. Just like you taught us, one sneered. Crossbows are easy once you get the hang of it. Felix froze. Are robbers? What's that look for? The man laughed. Yes, robbers. So this will be quick. Drop your luggage. Everything in your pockets too. Move slow and you die. He opened his mouth to laugh again. His head separated from his body. It rolled across the dirt. Blood sprayed. No one understood what had happened. Eugene had already moved. Didn't you say to move quickly? Eugene said calmly. The man with the pickaxe charged next. His head followed the first. One by one Eugene cut them down, clean, precise, merciless. A robber screamed for help, but it was useless. Eugene hurled his sword straight through the man's chest. He walked forward slowly, blood never touching his body. I don't understand humans, Eugene said quietly. Why do they try to kill and steal simply because someone looks weaker? Is it acceptable to bully the weak? He looked at Felid. If I learn to read, will I be able to understand things like that? Felid couldn't answer. He hesitated. So did Eugene. Felid gagged at the sight of blood. You said you'd confirm things with your own eyes, Eugene continued. What you believe is up to you. He wiped his blade. But I won't allow even a single drop of blood to stain me. And just like that, the carnage ended. They arrived at the bustling town under the noble's domain. The streets were crowded with people and the market was overflowing with goods. Herbs from dungeon subjugations, monster materials, rare trinkets, and countless other fascinating items. Miriam's eyes sparkled with excitement as she looked around at everything on display. Felid, however, quietly warned Eugene that if he planned to shop here, he should be careful. The merchants in this town were notorious for their tyranny, and it was easy to get ripped off. Even the village chief, Felid said, often left at a loss whenever he came to trade. Eugene simply thought that before worrying about being careful, he first needed money. He stopped in front of a shop and asked the shopkeeper if he was interested in buying some pelts. He placed several black wolf pelts on the counter. Black wolves were rare beasts in this region, and the quantity he had brought was not small. The shopkeeper examined them closely, then glanced up at Eugene. Seeing his covered face and shabby wanderer's attire, the man immediately judged him to be inexperienced, a perfect target. With a smug smile, the shopkeeper clicked his tongue. The damage on these pelts is quite severe. They're not very usable. Most? I can offer 18 silver mun. Eugene said nothing. He simply stared at him. The shopkeeper felt a chill crawl down his spine. Beneath the hood, Eugene's red eyes glinted coldly. Sweat began forming on the man's forehead. Oh, of course, the shopkeeper quickly added. Black wolf pelts are scarce these days. Supply is limited, demand is high. I could perhaps offer a little more. Eugene continued staring. Inwardly, the shopkeeper cursed. If he had a complaint, he should speak with words, not with those terrifying eyes. Ahem. I'm feeling generous today. Let's say 23 mun. Eugene hummed softly. The shopkeeper swallowed. Not satisfied? 25 mun. Another quiet hum. 27. 28. Silence. That unblinking stare never left him. Finally, nearly trembling, the shopkeeper blurted out, 30 silver mun. That's the highest I can go. I truly can't offer more. Eugene paused for a moment before calmly replying, deal. And just like that, he left the shop, having thoroughly reversed the attempt to rip him off. Later that night, under the soft glow of fireworks in the distance, Eugene sat by the fire reading. He stared at the letters carefully, tracing them with his finger. They looked valuable, important. He had learned the basics of letters, but he was still far from being able to read properly. Watching him read, Miriam tilted her head and commented that he looked decent now. After buying new clothes in town, Eugene's appearance had changed from shabby wanderer to neat and composed. When people think of vampires, they imagine silk clothes, she said. But this is worth the money spent. Eugene calmly replied that they had worried too much. It was a market full of generous hearts. They had even given extra service because he was a first-timer. Miriam snorted. That wasn't generosity. That merchant was a pushover. You just stared at him and he fell apart. She recalled the scene and laughed. You should have pushed further and bought expensive silk while you were at it. As long as it blocks the sunlight, it's enough, Eugene answered flatly. You should enjoy life more, Miriam sighed. Was your life stuck in a corner of a house all this time? Vampires are nobles among nobles. They wear silk in magnificent castles under the moonlight, order servants around, live luxuriously, and drink fresh blood like fine wine. Eugene glanced at her. You said you only lived in the wetlands. You know quite a lot. I originally belonged to the spirit limb realm, she replied proudly. Sometimes seniors who made it big in the human world come back. They share stories and advice. That's how I learned. She continued casually, Unless you're struck by a silver knife or a stake, you'll live at least 200 years. So learn things. Ancient scripts. The imperial language. Eugene paused. Do you know how to read? Miriam answered bluntly, no. Their conversation was interrupted when Felix approached from behind. He apologized for earlier and hesitated before asking if Eugene had been speaking to someone. I was talking to myself, Eugene replied. Is your stomach better? Felix flushed in embarrassment. I'm sorry for showing such an unsightly side. While dressing the rabbit, I remembered what happened this morning. It turned my stomach inside out. It's fine, Eugene said calmly. Most people aren't used to corpses. Felix nodded, then took out several sheets of paper. We have plenty of paper. I'll teach you writing as much as you'd like. And so the lesson began. After practicing for a while, Eugene asked, Is writing normally this easy to learn? Felix looked surprised. Not at all. You're just amazing, Sir Eugene. Even I, who was said to learn quickly, took months. Most people take a year. You flatter me, Eugene replied coldly. Will this be enough when you arrive? Just knowing how to read may not suffice if you're becoming a noble child overnight. Felix's expression dimmed as he stared into the fire. Mother never told me much in detail. It doesn't feel real yet. I don't even know if Sir Twin will welcome me. Before Eugene could respond, footsteps approached. A group of mercenaries emerged from the darkness. Their weapons were well maintained, their armor practical, their formation disciplined. These were real mercenaries, unlike the drifters Eugene had encountered before. The leader called out politely, We couldn't find a proper spot. May I ask where you're headed? There's a child in your group. Eugene quickly calculated. Lying clumsily would only raise suspicion. We are heading to Sir Twin's castle, he answered evenly. The mercenary nodded. We are as well. Would you mind sharing the spot? We can offer alcohol, water, and a lamp. Before he could finish, one of the younger mercenaries interrupted rudely. Captain Partek, why bother? We're taking this spot too. No need to ask. Eugene's gaze turned cold. The leader sighed. Please forgive him. This is labor. He hasn't been in the mercenary guild long. He still doesn't know where to lay his mat. He then introduced himself. My name is Partek. And yours? I am Knight Yen Eugene. The young mercenary burst into laughter. A knight? Captain Partek, do you believe that? Does he look like one? No horse, no armor. He stepped forward mockingly. Be honest, you're not really a knight, are you? Yen of the Eugene family? Never heard of such a house. He pointed a finger at Eugene. You're not impersonating one, are you? Eugene did not respond. He simply stared at him. Inside, his thoughts were calm and precise. Whether he was truly a knight or not probably didn't matter to them. But if they pressed the matter, the situation would change. Their numbers weren't high. He could kill them all. Quietly, without breaking eye contact, Eugene's hand moved to the hilt of his sword. Just as Eugene was about to unsheath his sword, Partek suddenly called out in a sharp, commanding voice. Laban. Before anyone could react, Partek stepped forward and delivered a devastating punch straight to Laban's face. The impact sent him flying backward into a tree with a dull crash. Without hesitation, Partek turned toward Eugene and bowed slightly. Sir Eugene, please forgive him. Eugene slowly withdrew his hand from the sword hilt and replied nonchalantly, An apology will suffice. Take your positions. You may rest there. The night deepened. They all rested around the campfire. Eugene sat calmly, reading by the firelight while Felix followed along beside him. Some time later, Laban suddenly regained consciousness. You fool, Partek snapped. Where did you get the courage to charge at a night without thinking? He smacked Laban's head again. You should be grateful your life was spared. A moment ago we nearly died because of you. Still dazed, Laban protested. What's so scary about that shabby-looking guy? He was barely holding an old short sword. Partek's expression hardened. Judging only by appearance, you can't even see an inch ahead. Do you know how much that robe he's wearing costs? That's high-quality cloth lined with lichen sloth leather. Even the cheapest ones cost over 10 silver coins. He continued in a low voice. And he was reading. That means he's educated. Not ordinary. Partek glanced toward Eugene, who remained quietly by the fire. He was about to draw his sword. If he had done so, we would all be dead. If lucky, perhaps one or two of us might survive. Laban frowned. How do you know? Partek answered calmly, While you were running your mouth earlier, his right hand was already inside his robe. His right foot slid slightly backward. Laban blinked. That is a stance that aligns the center of gravity along the trajectory of a sword strike, Pardik explained. It means he could take our heads in an instant. If I had been even a moment later, yours would have rolled on the ground. Laban swallowed but stubbornly argued, but Captain, you would have protected me, right? Pardik shook his head. You truly have no idea how terrifying a knight is. He spoke quietly but his tone carried weight. Knights are born into ancient families. Wooden swords are placed in their hands as children. They spend their entire lives learning how to kill. They enter unknown dungeons, face death without flinching and cut down monsters and men on battlefields. Only those who stain their hands with enough blood earn the attention of nobility and receive knighthood. He looked directly at Laban. And impersonating a knight is a grave crime. It's dangerous whether he's real or fake. If he's real, we're in trouble. If he's fake, it's worse, because no sane person claims to be a knight without confidence in their sword. He paused. How many people dedicate their lives to the blade and never become knights? Yet he looks barely over 20 and declared himself one openly. That alone means he has considerable skill. Sweat trickled down Laban's face. Is he stronger than you, Captain? Pardik answered honestly, most likely. He added, and he said he's heading to Lord Twin's castle. There are rumors of a newly discovered dungeon opening there. He's probably aiming to participate. Since their destinations were the same, they would inevitably encounter him again. Unbeknownst to them, Eugene had heard every word. His sharp hearing left nothing unnoticed. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple. So the title of knight carries that much weight. He had not realized its gravity. He hoped his method would continue working, but he needed better preparation. After a moment of thought, Eugene rose and walked toward Pardik. I heard your destination is also Lord Twin's castle, he said calmly. Since we are headed the same way, shall we travel together? He extended his hand. Then deliberately he removed his mask. Under the firelight, his sharp features and crimson eyes were fully revealed. His expression was composed, almost noble. Pardik and Laban were momentarily dazzled. Without hesitation, Pardik clasped his hand. It would be our honor, Sir Eugene. After a while, they reached the twin territory village of Martella. It was bustling with people and Eugene walked with his mask on. He thought that traveling with them to their destination should yield useful information. The problem was what would come next. As he was deep in thought, Miriam approached him and quietly called out. As he had asked, she had been eavesdropping on the mercenaries, and they had been gossiping just as he expected. Eugene asked what useful information she had gathered. Miriam relayed that Lord Twain's health was so poor that it wouldn't be surprising if he died tomorrow. She also said that a newly discovered dungeon had appeared within his territory. Conquering it could yield a fortune, but the twin family lacked both funds and troops, so they were unable to open it. Eugene thought that opening a new dungeon could come in handy. Miriam then reminded him, glancing at Felix, that if Lord Twain were to die soon, what would happen to the child? Wouldn't he become an orphan again as soon as he arrived? Eugene coldly replied that it was none of his business. Miriam persisted, saying that Felix might get killed by his brothers. Eugene considered that the reason Lord Twain had summoned Felix was probably to see his child's face before he died. From now on, his fate, and mine, will change in some way, Eugene thought. Later they arrived at Rose Castle, the stronghold of the Twin Lord. It was enormous. Seeing it, Miriam exclaimed that Lord Eugene should rise quickly and one day live in a castle like that. Just as they were about to enter, someone halted them. The mercenary captain greeted the man and said that they were the mercenary group sent by the Palin Trading Company. He respectfully asked who the esteemed gentleman before him might be. The man, holding a small beast stone, replied that he was Kamara Twin, the heir of House Twin and its eldest son. He asked if the goods behind them were the shipment. The mercenary captain answered that, as he could see, they had brought everything safely. Kamara told them not to dawdle and to start unloading. Then he glanced past the captain and asked who the people behind him were, since they did not seem to be traveling together. Eugene stepped forward and introduced himself as the knight Jan Eugene. Just as he was about to introduce the child beside him, someone suddenly interrupted. "Brother Kamara, what are you doing right now?" a voice shouted as its owner hurried over. It was a familiar voice to Eugene, one he remembered from his past life. The owner of that voice had once been the head of the vampire pursuit squad who first discovered Eugene in hiding and, along with young Dorit, had tormented him relentlessly. He was the knight Bertel Twin. Bertel Twin was the second son and a knight of House Twin. He strode forward and demanded to know what they were doing here, as the castle guard duty was under his command. Kamara frowned and asked if he was supposed to report everything to him, reminding Bertel that he was the heir to the Lord. While the two brothers argued, Eugene stepped forward and handed over the letter from the village chief. Bertel reached out to take it, but Eugene pulled his hand back and instead handed it to Kamara, further irritating Bertel. As Kamara read the letter, his expression changed to shock. It stated that the mercenaries had been ambushed by wolves and that everyone had died. It also revealed that the child was an illegitimate son of Lord Twin. Kamara slowly looked at Felix. Felix bowed politely and introduced himself. Kamara gave him a gentle smile, but Bertel's expression darkened. Kamara said that their father was eager to see him. Bertel, in an irritated tone, ordered the servants to take Felix away to be washed and properly dressed, then turned to leave. Eugene stopped him and asked about the promised reward, and requested an audience with Lord Twin. Bertel angrily refused. He said his father was not well enough to receive visitors and that he would pay Eugene in gold, so he should return for now. Eugene remained unconvinced and Bertel's temper began to rise. Kamara quickly stepped in, smoothing over the situation. He persuaded Eugene that meeting their father was impossible at the moment and escorted Felix away with him. Suddenly, a large man approached, calling out to Bertel. He carried several men slung over his shoulder and threw them at Bertel's feet. They were mercenaries who had been stealing from villagers. He said he had brought them here to train them. He added that they should kill one to set an example, since they had been brought to prepare for the dungeon. At the mention of the dungeon, Bertel told him to come inside and discuss it further, and the two left together. Partik stepped beside Eugene and quietly explained that the large man was Sir Galfredic, a knight with a bright future ahead of him. He possessed monstrous strength and the skill to match. Eugene asked what Sir Galfredic was doing here. Partik explained about the newly discovered dungeon. Even though this territory was far from the capital, successfully opening a dungeon was considered a great achievement for a knight. He assumed Sir Galfredic planned to use it as a stepping stone to be hired by a more powerful noble family. After listening, Eugene asked if Partik's job was done for now. Partik nodded and said yes. Eugene then asked if Partik would consider him as his next client. Later that night, the mercenaries were being brutally trained by Sir Galfredic and Bertel. From a window above, Kamara watched them in silence. He knew that ever since their father's health had declined, his younger brother had openly pursued the position of successor. Bertel had brought Sir Galfredic here through his own connections. He was clearly aiming to open the dungeon. If he succeeded, public support would shift toward him. But how could he accomplish the same? He could not simply hire random men. Kamara felt cornered, uncertain of his next move. At that moment, a servant entered and announced that Sir Eugene was requesting an audience. Kamara told him to let Eugene in. When Eugene entered, Kamara greeted him with a pleasant smile and assured him not to worry about Felix. They were ensuring his safety. Once their father awakened, he would properly reward Eugene for bringing the child safely. He also expressed gratitude for the letter. Eugene replied calmly that he was glad to hear it, but for now, he had business only with the lord of the estate. Hearing this, Kamara sat down and asked whether Eugene wished to obtain official identity certification by meeting his father. Eugene answered honestly that he did, but he also had another proposal. He asked to be included in the dungeon raid. Kamara burst into laughter. He called Eugene an interesting man, glanced at his ragged clothes, and asked if the knight who claimed to have killed 5 robbers was trying to improve his image by participating in the dungeon raid. "Is there a reason I should allow you?" Kamara asked. Eugene calmly replied that it was an offer that would cause no harm. As a reward for opening the dungeon, he would take only 100 silver mun and half the loot, excluding the mana stone. Kamara narrowed his eyes. It was a good offer, almost too good. "That is exactly what makes it suspicious," Kamara said. "Given the current economic state, that is very little to ask for." Eugene simply asked, "Do you accept or not?" He then added quietly, "Because from where I stand, it is you who is in a corner right now." Kamara frowned and asked what Eugene meant by that. Eugene calmly repeated his terms. He and his mercenaries would be paid a total of 100 silver coins, plus half of the dungeon byproducts, excluding the mana crystals. Kamara leaned back in his chair. It's not a bad offer, he admitted. In fact, that's exactly why I'm suspicious. He studied Eugene carefully. Knights lived by honor and died by honor. Judging by his worn clothes, Eugene appeared to be a wandering knight with no noble house supporting him. Yet he showed no greed for money. It seemed that honor truly came first for him. From what I heard earlier, Kamara thought. Before he could finish that line of reasoning, Eugene spoke again. You are not in a hurry, Eugene said quietly. You are. Kamara's eyes sharpened. His brother had already brought Sir Galfredic and was clearly moving toward the successor position. If Bertel opened the dungeon first, public opinion would shift entirely in his favor. Kamara suddenly laughed. No, he said. I am not like typical knights whose brains are nothing but muscle. He stood and extended his hand. Very well, Sir Eugene. I look forward to working with you. Eugene remembered Partik's earlier advice. The offer he had made was exactly what Partik had suggested a reasonable knight would demand. It had worked. He clasped Kamara's hand. In another room, Bertel was speaking with Galfredic. His expression was sour. Kamara says another wandering knight is joining the subjugation, Bertel said irritably. A dungeon is not child's play. At that moment the doors opened. Eugene entered, with Partik and his mercenary group behind him. Bertel's eyes widened in surprise, then he laughed mockingly. Kamara, he said, you cannot accept someone whose origins and skills are both unknown. Kamara responded calmly, Sir Eugene's skills are proven. He eliminated a group of bandits with nothing but a short sword. Before another word could be spoken, a dagger suddenly flew toward Eugene. Without changing his expression, Eugene casually deflected it aside. The dagger clattered to the floor. Sir Galfredic laughed loudly and stepped forward. My apologies for my rudeness at our first meeting, he said. But judging by your unscarred skin and lack of sunburn, you seem to have grown up quite sheltered. He rested his hand on the hilt of his sword. So, young master, would you allow me to see your skills? The room buzzed with excitement. A duel was inevitable. Servants, mercenaries and guards gathered to watch. Most whispered confidently that Sir Galfredic would win regardless of his opponent. Some even felt sorry for Eugene. Galfredic raised his sword properly, taking a formal knight's stance. Eugene simply tilted his head and mirrored the posture without emotion. The duel began. Steel clashed against steel. Galfredic grinned. Come at me. Eugene answered with relentless swings of his sword. Again and again their blades collided, the sharp echoes ringing through the hall. To Partik's mercenaries, it looked as if Galfredic was being steadily pushed back. But Partik shook his head. Push back? No, he murmured. He's sizing him up. Indeed, Galfredic was deliberately giving ground, analyzing Eugene with every exchange. His thoughts sharpened as their swords met. His fundamentals are better than expected. No obvious habits to exploit. I can't grasp his style at all. He's not polished like a formally trained noble swordsman, but he fights like someone who survived in the wild. Suddenly Galfredic parried hard, locking their blades. With a wide grin he leaned closer. You being a knight, that's a lie, isn't it? Galfredic burst into laughter. Your swordsmanship is undefined, he declared loudly. Your stance is sloppy. You've never been properly trained. You're relying entirely on physical ability. Eugene's expression did not change. You talk too much, he replied, and their blades clashed again. Galfredic grinned. Defeat me and I'll shut my mouth. This time he shifted from analysis to offense. His counterattacks came like a storm. Each strike was heavier, sharper, more precise. Eugene tried to parry, but the force behind Galfredic's swing sent him flying backward. The hall gasped. Bertel smiled. Did he pass out from that? Dust settled. Eugene was still standing. He rolled his shoulder once and looked up calmly. Who passed out? He asked coldly. The crowd stirred. They clashed again. But this time something had changed. Eugene was adapting. Each exchange sharpened him. He was learning, absorbing Galfredic's swordsmanship in real time. Steel screamed against steel. And then Eugene's sword shattered. A collective gasp echoed through the hall. Now there were no blades between them. They stepped forward simultaneously. Fists met forearms. Elbows crashed. Shoulders collided. Hand to hand. Galfredic was larger, broader, built like a fortress. Yet Eugene's body held terrifying strength. His raw power was overwhelming. Still, Galfredik had experience. He twisted his hips, shifted his footing, and broke Eugene's stance. I have the edge, Galfredik thought. He drew back his fist. But at the very instant he struck, Eugene rotated his arm in a smooth circular motion, redirecting the force. A counter. Cling. Precise. His fist shot forward and connected directly with Galfredik's face. The impact thundered through the hall. Galfredik flew backward, crashing into the castle wall. Stone shattered. He broke through the wall entirely and disappeared in a cloud of debris. Silence. Then. The winner, the referee declared in disbelief, is Knight Jan Eugene. The hall exploded with cheers. Even the mercenaries roared in excitement. No one realized how insane that final exchange truly was. Moments later, Galfredik staggered back through the broken wall, huffing, dust-covered but conscious. He raised Eugene's hand high. Applause, he shouted. For tonight's winner, Jan Eugene. The crowd cheered again. But behind Bertel twins' eyes burned with humiliation and fury. Later that evening, Eugene was seated in a lavish chamber. The table before him overflowed with rich meats, fresh bread, fruits, and wine. The butler bowed. Orders from Master Kamara. You are to eat well and rest properly before the dungeon opens. Servants hovered around him, speaking politely. Is everything to your liking, Sir Eugene? Do you require anything else? Varia stifled a laugh. You can't exactly tell them a vampire doesn't need food, she whispered. I wonder if his lordship will get a stomachache from all this. Eugene calmly set down his utensils. I appreciate your kindness, he told the servants evenly. But from now on I will take care of my own meals. You are all dismissed. The butler hesitated. Sir, Master Kamara instructed. Eugene's voice turned cold. Tell Lord Kamara this, I prefer to be alone. The servants bowed quickly and withdrew. From that day forward, the way people looked at him changed completely. When Eugene walked through the castle halls, conversations stopped. Heads bowed respectfully. Later, Kamara approached him. Did you sleep well? He asked casually, though his tone carried clear regard. Others greeted him with deep politeness. Even Galfredik approached with a wide grin. My friend and comrade in arms, Sir Jan Eugene, he declared loudly, almost clinging to him. Eugene studied him silently. He doesn't care whether I'm truly a knight or not. One by one, those who had doubted him began to drop their suspicions. It was the result he had wanted. Yet the constant attention, the swarming presence of people, was something he still could not grow accustomed to even after several days. As they were speaking in the courtyard, a familiar figure approached. Felix. His armor was battered. His face bruised. Yet he wore his usual easy smile. Sir Eugene, Felix said warmly, have you been well all this time? In a barn hidden somewhere in the back alleys, screams echoed through the darkness. It was Bertel. He was punishing the men who had been tasked with hiring mercenaries. Their job had been simple: make sure the illegitimate child died in that village. If that had happened, the boy would never have reached the castle, and Bertel's plan would not have fallen apart. The man on the ground begged for mercy. Bertel did not even look at him. He continued torturing him again and again, calling him useless. Finally, he cruelly cut out the man's eyes. His subordinates watched in horror. Bertel wiped the blood from his blade and spoke coldly. He couldn't act openly unless someone had already slipped inside the castle. But now he had a better idea. He remembered Felix. With that method, even disposing of the body would be clean. Later, Eugene spoke privately with Felix. He had heard that Sir Bertel had ordered Felix to head into the dungeon that was about to open. Felix's hands trembled. I came here to die, he said in a shaking voice. And now they're sending me to the dungeon to die. Eugene looked at him calmly. Do you remember the incident when the mercenaries sent to your village were attacked by black wolves? Felix nodded. Those third-rate mercenaries who became wolf food, Eugene continued, were probably sent by one of your brothers. They never intended for you to reach this castle alive. Felix's face went pale. But there is a way for you to live, Eugene said. Felix's eyes widened. You can become my retainer. Felix froze. You're 16, Eugene continued. You've already completed your coming-of-age ceremony. You don't need a guardian's consent anymore. You can choose your own path. He looked directly at him. You can either stay hidden and wait for someone to end your life, or struggle until the very end. The next day the dungeon finally opened. Everyone prepared for the dungeon expedition. Sir Galfredik gathered the fighters and explained the strategy. If a high-rank monster appears, we retreat immediately, he ordered. Everyone acknowledged the command. Scouts were sent toward the dungeon entrance. Some mercenaries joked among themselves, saying that once the lower-ranked monsters were cleared, they would pretend to fall back and let the knights handle the rest. While they talked, Bertel passed by. "Where is Felix?" he demanded. He had definitely ordered the illegitimate child to come here. Someone answered, "Are you talking about the kid beside Sir Eugene?" Bertel turned. Felix was standing next to Eugene, offering him a small snack. Bertel's face twisted with anger. He stormed toward them. "How did a low-born, uncivilized brat end up here?" he shouted. Felix trembled. "Did you already forget my orders?" Bertel snapped. "Grab your bag and move into position." Felix did not move. He stayed behind Eugene. Bertel reached forward to grab him. But Eugene stepped in and blocked his arm. "Move your hand," Eugene said coldly. He continued, "You're sending a boy who has never held anything sharper than a kitchen knife into a dungeon the moment it opens. Are you out of your mind?" Bertel slapped Eugene's hand away. "That's rude," he growled. "I'm simply training my younger brother to be strong. You should know your place. You have no authority over this child." Eugene stepped forward. "It seems you are the one who doesn't know your place." He placed a hand on Felix's shoulder. "That boy became my retainer yesterday." The crowd stirred. "And everyone here is a witness," Eugene continued calmly. "This bond is thicker than blood. If any of you so much as lay a finger on him, I will consider it a challenge against me." He leaned closer, meeting Bertel eye to eye. "If you want to loosen up before entering the dungeon, go ahead." Bertel stepped back slightly, shaken. "Who gave you permission?" he demanded. "Do you think taking in another family's illegitimate child is that simple?" Behind them, people began whispering. Many remembered the duel between Eugene and Sir Galfredic the previous week. They believed the dungeon expedition would be safer with Eugene present. Bertel realized he couldn't openly oppose someone the others trusted. At that moment, Kamara stepped forward. "I will also entrust my younger brother to Sir Eugene," he said calmly. "Felix is 16. He is already an adult. He should choose his own path." Bertel's face darkened with anger, but he could do nothing. Eugene understood the situation clearly. Felix was weak, and weakness attracted predators. Survival was never easy. But if one could not grow stronger alone, then the only way to survive was to gather into a pack. Kamara then turned to Felix. "Come with me," he said. "I'll show you the training grounds." The tense atmosphere slowly eased. Soon after, a scout rushed in with a report. "There are no traces of monsters outside the dungeon tunnel. Nothing has escaped. It should be safe to open the dungeon." The knight stepped forward. Sir Galfredic raised his sword and shouted, "Everyone prepare. Survive on your own. Advance." With that command, the dungeon invasion began. Inside the dungeon, monsters swarmed in overwhelming numbers. Soldiers and mercenaries struggled to hold their ground as the fierce battle intensified. The narrow tunnels echoed with the clash of steel and the roars of monsters. Sir Galfredic fought at the front, shouting orders. "Don't break formation. Hold the line." Several mercenaries panicked and tried to retreat, but the monsters had already surrounded them, blocking every path back. Galfredic rushed forward and cut down the creatures attacking them. "Hold the defense line," he commanded. At that moment, a soldier shouted in alarm. "Monsters are coming from the rear." Before panic could spread, Eugene stepped forward. "I'll handle it." Without waiting for anyone's response, he rushed down the rear tunnel alone. The others continued fighting, but after some time, something unexpected happened. Eugene's mask suddenly came flying out of the tunnel. Galfredic's eyes widened. Did something happen to him? He immediately ran toward the tunnel. But when he arrived, he stopped in shock. Eugene stood there calmly, holding a glowing piece of glowgrass in his hand. The ground around him was covered with the corpses of monsters. He had killed every single one. After the battle, the group took a short rest. The soldiers wiped the blood from their weapons while the mercenaries gathered the monster corpses and searched them for valuable materials. Someone approached Eugene and handed him the mana crystals they had collected. There were only a few of them. They were small and blue in color, very different from the red crystal he had obtained earlier. Miriam examined them and sighed. "Disappointingly small," she said. She then explained, "When a dungeon monster leaves the dungeon and survives outside, it becomes what people call a roamer." Eugene already knew this. That was exactly how he had obtained the red mana crystal before. Suddenly, the ground began to vibrate. A deep roar echoed through the dungeon tunnels. Galfredic quickly stood up. "Mercenaries, stay behind us," he ordered. "Eugene and I will take the front." Eugene stepped forward. Several powerful monsters were approaching. "These are intermediate monsters," Galfredic said. "Once we eliminate them, the high-level monsters should be near the dungeon core." Eugene's thoughts drifted briefly. After consuming the red mana crystal from the roamer in the swamp, he had gained a very useful ability. He wondered, if I consume another one like that, will I gain a different ability? He focused his senses. "I hear at least 50 footsteps," Eugene said calmly. "They're about 100 meters away, and there are 3 heavier ones at the back." Galfredic smiled, impressed. He handed Eugene a spear. "Would you like to throw this yourself?" Eugene took the spear without hesitation. With immense strength, he hurled it forward. The spear shot through the air like lightning and struck a massive monster directly in the head. Its skull exploded from the impact. "Charge!" someone shouted. Everyone rushed forward. Eugene moved faster than anyone. His blade flashed again and again, slicing through monster limbs and tearing through flesh. The mercenaries tried to assist him, but Eugene had already leapt ahead alone. He smashed one monster aside, then another. His sword slashed relentlessly through the horde. Blood splattered across the stone floor. Eugene felt something stir within him. He liked the taste of blood. On that day, the soldiers and mercenaries engraved the image of that night deeply into their memories. It was not the image of the knights they had always admired. There was no noble elegance, no dignified restraint. What stood before them was something far beyond their expectations. Not a noble hero, but a bloody beast who reveled in the carnage of battle. After the hunt, Eugene sat casually atop the corpse of a massive monster, while the soldiers cleaned the battlefield and collected valuables. Sir Galfredic observed his men. They were exhausted, not physically but mentally. What they had witnessed was beyond anything they expected. Realizing this, he approached Eugene. "We've reached our target," he said respectfully. "We should withdraw." Eugene replied calmly, "I'm not tired. Turning back now would be a waste. You can return if you want." Hearing this, Galfredic turned and shouted, "We move together. Advance." But Eugene stepped down from the corpse and stopped him. "Take your soldiers and leave," he said. "From here on, only I and my mercenaries will proceed." Galfredic paused. He realized Eugene had noticed the soldiers' condition and was choosing to protect them in his own way. Behind that cold exterior, he truly cares, Galfredic thought. With that, only Eugene, Pardik, and Rabin ventured deeper into the dungeon. As they moved forward, Rabin suddenly crushed something underfoot. A spider. Then more. A swarm of massive cave-bred spiders emerged from the shadows, their venom strong enough to melt flesh and even metal. "There are too many," Pardik warned. "We should fall back." Eugene ignored him. "These numbers are nothing." He charged forward alone. The spiders swarmed, webs flying in every direction. Rabin tried to fight but was quickly caught in a web. At the last moment, Eugene cut him free. Without hesitation, Eugene slaughtered the entire swarm by himself. But Pardik's expression darkened. "This isn't right," he muttered. Among monsters there were ranks, and higher variants were extremely rare. Yet the presence here suggested something far worse. Then it appeared. A massive, grotesque spider emerged from the depths. The Spider Lord. Its body was enormous, its mouth twisted, its tongue hanging out grotesquely. Pardik's voice trembled. "We can't handle this. We need to retreat and regroup with Sir Galfredic." Eugene didn't even look at him. "Withdraw," he said coldly. "I'll handle this myself." Pardik and Rabin froze. An overwhelming pressure filled the air. Their bodies moved on instinct alone. They turned and fled without question. Behind them, Miriam let out a small laugh. "Looks like their instincts gave up," she said. "They know the difference in strength." Eugene didn't respond. He stared at the Spider Lord. "That lord, is it just a roamer?" he asked. Miriam shook her head. "No. At that level, it might even be stronger than the master of the swamp." Eugene's eyes sharpened. "In that case, its mana should be even denser." A faint smile appeared. "Worth it." He stepped forward. After all, the harder it is to open a treasure chest, the greater the excitement for what lies inside.